in this lesson, we'll create the wheels for the motorcycle. So I've just got all the geometry turned off here, and so I've just added those to these different layers just by selecting the geometry and then just choosing to create a new layer and add that to the layer. Okay, and then I just turn the visibility off, and so all that geometry is still there. I've just turned it off so that in our viewport we can concentrate on the just wheels. So I'm going to use this image as a basis for creating the wheels, at least for the size, and then move it over to the origin to build that a little bit easier. So let's go ahead and drop in a standard primitive tube to begin with, and I'll just draw it out from kind of the center of this point, get it roughly to the where that wheel is, and pull that in. Give it a little bit of a height, okay, and then we can go ahead and now just translate this over to the origin there. So we'll just pop that onto there. All right. So now we can check the kind of the thickness of this, or the height, and some of the parameters. Let's go ahead and dial the height down a bit. So get something like that. All right. And go ahead and check that against the tank or against the frame if we want to. So maybe a little bit smaller. All right. So one thing that I want to do is actually to center the pivot and move this over, because right now we're working with the pivot kind of on the one side. So I'm going to go ahead and center that pivot, which will move that over, and then I'll go ahead and take that down to that origin. Okay, so we need an area. We need to figure out the resolution for this. So I've got sides at 24, which I think will work okay for us. And I also want to have a loop of polygons right in the middle, which is what we have here. This kind of loop right in here. All right. And we can have extra loops over there. That's okay. And I also want to make sure that I have a cap segment right in here for some detail that we're going to add in a little bit. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is add another piece of this. So let's go into the left-hand view and we'll turn off our background. Let's now add kind of the center hub to this. So go ahead and add a standard primitive cylinder, and let's go ahead and drag this out in the center to kind of something like that. We'll drag out the height. Let's go to the top view. Okay, go to our wireframe. And again, I want to go ahead and center this pivot so that we're working equally on both sides. Okay, so I'll kind of pull that in there to the center. And let's go ahead and just kind of scale this down a little bit so you get something like that. Let's check our sides. Let's leave those at 12. Okay, so the outer one is 24. The inner part is 12. Okay, so you don't want them to all be the same. You don't want them both to be the same. We've got cap segments. We've got 1, which I think is fine. We don't need all that detail in there yet. The height segments, rather. And then the cap segments we've got as 2. Okay, I think that will probably work, although we might even go ahead and just make that 1 to make it a little bit easier for us to work with, just knowing what we're going to be adding to this a little bit later. All right, so now we've got the inner part and the outer part. We need to somehow get these connected. Before we do that, I want to make sure that I line up these edges with the outside of this inner guy. So I'm going to go ahead and choose this tube, convert it to an editable poly. This is the outer part we've got here now. Go ahead and select these edges. Okay, and this is the inner edges. Select the entire loop, and let's move those over in line with the outside of that inner cylinder so that they match up. Let's go ahead and do the same thing over here. Select the loop, match them up with that cylinder. Okay, so you get something like that. Now let's go ahead and take this, and we need to make this one piece. So we'll go ahead and attach, and so now these are part of the same object. All right. So the next thing I want to do is go ahead and take basically this row here. So what I can do is take both of these edges on either side of it, select the loop, and then shift click on the polygon selection, and that will select all those polygons. And I'm going to go ahead and just extrude that in. So go to local normal, take that height way down to get something like that. Give it a little bit of a lip in there. Okay. We'll say OK to that. And we can do just a very small inset on that to get a little bit more of that lip detail in there. Alright, so now we need to connect these pieces up. So what we want to do is select a couple of polygons here and then a couple of polygons here. So we're connecting 2 and 2. Go ahead and do a bridge. We can add segments to this bridge. Okay, so add a couple of segments. We can taper this. So we taper it in, and we can change the bias towards one side or the other. Okay, say OK to that. And now we need to calculate how many we can skip here. So what I'm going to do is skip 6 here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Select another couple of polygons, but on this one I'm only going to skip 2. Okay, and I'll repeat that bridge. If you have the same number, so if you have 24 and 24, you're modifying, so you're combining something that is larger with something that is smaller, so you're going to have a little bit more difficulty because your two faces here are not going to correspond necessarily with two faces here. It's going to be really kind of small, and that's not going to match up. So you need to kind of think about it beforehand. So down here we'll go ahead and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Go ahead and select those polygons, and then skip 2 in the middle and select those, control click those, and just go ahead and bevel those. Okay, now to add a little bit of interest to this, let's go ahead and select basically all the points in the middle. So just select all of these guys. Okay, and let's go ahead and just rotate them a little bit, just slightly. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and deselect the outer points, so all these, rotate it just a little bit more, and again select those, deselect those, and then rotate it just a bit more. So it's got kind of this pinwheel effect here. Alright, so now for this center part, go ahead and select those on both sides, and let's just start to do some beveling. So I'll go ahead and bevel, take the height down, okay, take that amount and height. So this first one we can make fairly close. Okay, go ahead and apply that. The next one, kind of bring that out a little bit more. Okay, so you get something like that. You can apply that. This one, let's take the height down. Okay, so we get something that's a little bit flatter. Okay, so you get something like that. Say OK to that. And now with these still selected, it's a very simple matter to go in and either we can delete those or we can actually bridge those together. So if we just hit bridge, it'll actually bridge those right across, and we can take off that taper, take down our segments, and we've got some geometry going through there. Otherwise we could go in and just delete those, delete the faces if we wanted to do that, or we could actually bridge that geometry in the middle. So if I deleted that, you can see we just have a hole there, which we may want to fill with an axle of some sort. So either way you want to do it. If you want to go ahead and select that border, okay, and then just hold down Shift and just move that in to give it a little bit of a lip there, you could do that as well. So a lot of ways that you can create geometry on the inside of this. Okay, and we had a big n-gon there before. Now everything is fine. Okay, so now for the lip coming out here, I probably want to take these polygons right out here and kind of create another lip. So if I go ahead and select these, and it'll just be a matter of extruding those out. And we probably want to do it over on the other side as well. Yeah, so go ahead and extrude that out a little bit. Okay, So just something like that. Okay, and then if we wanted to take this edge and this edge, go ahead and select those polygons, and then we could extrude those out to create that kind of the lip where that tire fits in. Okay, and you can do that on the other side as well. Now to tighten some of these edges up, you probably want to come in and, for instance, on the inside of these spokes, go ahead and select that entire ring, and then go ahead and do a connect with a couple of segments, and then pinch that out towards the ends a little bit more. Okay, and if we take a look at the contrast of that, we can see how that's nice and sharp. Okay, and then that's not. So you want to come in and add some more resolution to that. So anywhere you want to be sharp, add a few more lines in. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and finish adding my lines for the sharpness on this, and go ahead and add the lip over onto the other side. And then in the next lesson, we'll come in and add the tire to this wheel. Okay, so we'll go ahead and see you next.